Welcome back to UF-OMG, where stories live. Tonight's story is The Abduction Chronicles, a tale of Jim Sparks and the Keepers. Jim didn't need hypnosis to remember. He lived it, awake, every second etched into his mind. He landed in a room cold and metallic, its walls pulsing with faint light. Before him stood the Greys, small, thin beings with black, almond-shaped eyes that swallowed the light. Their skin shimmered, almost liquid, and when they moved, it was like watching shadows shift. Jim's heart pounded, but he didn't run. He couldn't. They spoke not with words, but with thoughts that crashed into his skull.
You are chosen. You will see.
For nearly 2 decades, this became Jim's secret life. Night after night, the whirling returned, and each time the Greys revealed more. They showed him machines that bent time, clocks spinning backward as years melted away. He saw transport that didn't move through space but through thought. One moment here, the next 1,000 miles away. Once they took him to a forest, or what was left of it, stumps, bleeding sap, the air choked with ash. A voice sharp and urgent echoed in his mind.
Your planet is dying. You must change.
The Greys weren't just visitors. They were messengers, and Jim was their reluctant scribe. But it wasn't always just the Greys. One night the room wasn't empty when he arrived. Men in military uniforms stood silent, their faces shadowed, watching as the Greys worked. Jim felt a chill deeper than the metal floor. One soldier, a tall figure with a clipped voice, barked an order to the Greys. They obeyed, adjusting a device that hummed with a sickly green light. Jim's stomach turned as he realized this wasn't just an alien show. Humans were in on it, part of some deal he couldn't grasp. Were they trading secrets, power, or something darker? The Greys didn't hide their experiments. One time they held him still as a needle-like tool hovered over his skin. He felt no pain, just a pull, like part of him was being borrowed. Later they showed him a vision of hybrid beings, half human, half them, eyes wide and unblinking.
For survival.
Whose survival? Theirs? Ours? Jim didn't know, but the image burned into his soul. The strangest night came years in. The Greys brought him to a chamber where the walls rippled like water. A figure stepped forward, not a Grey, but something taller, its form shifting. Human 1 second, reptilian the next. Jim's breath caught as it spoke, its voice a low hiss in his mind.
We are the Keepers. We watch. We wait.
The Keepers, they called themselves, guardians of something ancient, something tied to Earth's fate. They showed him a globe, cracked and fading, forests shrinking, oceans boiling.
You are the message. Tell them.
Jim tried to resist. Why me? He shouted, his voice echoing in the void. The answer was simple, cold.
Because you remember.
Unlike others who forgot or needed hypnosis, Jim's mind held every detail, the whirling, the Greys, the military shadows, the Keepers' warning. They'd chosen him because he couldn't unsee it. The abductions stretched across years, each one a thread in a tapestry of dread and wonder. One night they took him high above Earth, the planet of fragile marble below. He saw storms raging, cities crumbling, and felt their message sink deeper. Humanity was on borrowed time. But there was hope, too. A vision of green returning, skies clearing. If only people listened. The Greys didn't plead, they demanded.
Evolve or end.
They thought, and Jim felt the weight of it crush him. Then came the night that broke him open. The whirling pulled him not to a ship, but to a field. Earth, but not as he knew it. Military trucks rumbled nearby, their lights cutting through the dark. The Greys stood beside a man in a suit, his face hidden, handing over a case that pulsed with energy. Jim's mind raced. Technology? DNA? A deal sealed in shadows. The Greys turned to him, their eyes boring into his.
This is your burden now. Speak.
And then he was back in bed, soaked in sweat, the whirling fading like a dying heartbeat. By 2006, Jim couldn't keep it inside anymore. He wrote it all down, every encounter, every vision, in a book called The Keepers. He didn't care if people laughed or called him mad. The Greys had drilled their message into him. The planet was dying, and humans had to act. He added more in 2014, years of new visits piling onto the old. The military's role gnawed at him. Were they allies or pawns? He'd seen too much to trust either side. Jim's life became the message. He spoke on airwaves, stood before crowds, founded a group to fight for the Earth. Your Earth, he called it, echoing the Keeper's plea. The abductions slowed, but the whirling never left his dreams. He'd stare at the stars, wondering if the Greys watched, if the Keepers waited, if humanity would wake up before the end. Now picture Jim today, a man changed by 2 decades of nights no one else could fathom. He's not a hero, not a prophet, just a witness carrying a story too big to hold. The Greys, the military, the Keepers, they're out there, he knows it, and their words still ring. Your planet is dying. Will we listen, or will the whirling come for us all?